The walls are finally closing in, and the grand illusion of Prince Harry's crusade against the media has just met a catastrophic end. Imagine the scene. It is July 2026. The setting is the prestigious Chatham House, a place where world leaders and intellectuals gather to discuss the future of global affairs. Harry walks onto that stage, perhaps expecting the usual polite applause, but the atmosphere is thick with a tension he cannot escape. Because just moments before he stepped up to the microphone, a legal bombshell detonated across every newswire in the world. The High Court has delivered its final, crushing blow. Harry has lost everything in his £50 million legal battle against the Daily Mail. That is $10 million gone in an instant. But as the world watches, it becomes clear that the financial ruin is only the beginning of the nightmare. Take a look at the man on that stage. There is no Meghan by his side. There are no high-powered Hollywood advisors flanking him. For the first time, the Duke of Sussex stands utterly, hauntingly alone. He is clutching a single piece of paper, his knuckles white, his face drained of all colour. When he begins to speak, the voice that once lectured the world on bravery and resilience is gone. Instead, we hear a voice that is thin, fragile, and choking back tears. In a moment that will be etched into royal history, Harry tried to maintain his composure, telling the room that he had fought this battle for the sake of the truth and for the protection of his family. He whispered that the cost of silence was too high for him to bear. But as he spoke those words, his voice cracked. A visible sob caught in his throat, and the room fell into a deafening, uncomfortable silence. He looked less like a prince and more like a man who had finally realised he was standing on a sinking ship. Before we dive deeper into the wreckage of this reputation, do me a quick favour. If you believe the truth about the monarchy needs to be told without the PR spin, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the Royal Audit and turn on all notifications so you never miss a breakdown of these historic shifts. And tell me in the comments, do you think this is the final nail in the coffin for Harry's public life? We want to hear from you. This court ruling didn't just empty Harry's bank account, it systematically dismantled the very foundation of his identity. For years, he framed himself as the lone warrior taking on the giants to save the world from misinformation. Now, the highest court in the land has essentially told him that his claims were hollow. His credibility is not just damaged, it is effectively destroyed. The $10 million price tag is a heavy burden, but the weight of being branded a loser on the world stage is a debt he may never be able to repay. But here is where the story takes a truly dark turn. The lawsuit he swore he would win, the gamble he used to justify turning his back on his own blood, has evaporated in a single afternoon. And the most chilling detail of that day at Chatham House wasn't the legal defeat. It was the empty seat next to him. The woman he claimed to be protecting, the partner he portrayed as his ultimate ally in this war against the press, where was she? Why did Meghan Markle leave him to face the most humiliating moment of his life in total isolation? We were told this was the love story of the century, a bond that could withstand any storm. Yet, as Harry stood there trembling, his mask of royal defiance was ripped away to reveal a man who has been abandoned by the very person he gave up everything for. Stay with us for the next few minutes because we are about to tear apart the fabric of this great romance and show you exactly why the Sussex brand is currently in a state of total collapse. The courtroom was silent as Judge Nicklin handed down a document that would change the course of royal history forever. This wasn't just a simple rejection. It was a 436-page systematic destruction of every claim Prince Harry had built his new life upon. For years, the Duke had insisted that he was the victim of a sophisticated phone-tapping conspiracy, a narrative he used to justify his departure from the United Kingdom and his scorched earth policy against the British press. But the High Court's conclusion was devastating in its simplicity. The judge ruled that Harry's allegations were not based on facts, but rather on what was described as paranoid suspicion. 436 pages of legal analysis reached a singular crushing verdict. There was not a single shred of credible evidence to support his claims. The court essentially told the world that the Duke of Sussex had spent years fighting a ghost, dragging his family through the mud based on nothing more than his own imagination and deep-seated resentment. But as damaging as the ruling was, The true scandal emerged from a specific, shocking moment of cross-examination that has now left Harry's reputation in tatters. During the proceedings, Harry gave sworn testimony regarding a well-known journalist, Charlotte Griffiths. He looked the court in the eye and swore under oath that he had never met her, had no relationship with her, and that she was merely another face in the media machine he claimed was out to destroy him. He framed himself as a man being stalked by a stranger. The defense's response was immediate and surgical. They didn't just argue with him, they produced the receipts. A series of private Facebook messages were presented to the court, showing a clear, familiar, and even intimate history of communication between Harry and the very woman he claimed to be a total stranger. The mask of the truth seeker didn't just slip, it was violently torn away. To lie under oath is one thing, but to be caught in such a blatant, easily disprovable falsehood suggests a level of desperation that is hard to fathom. The fallout was instantaneous. The media, which Harry had tried so hard to dismantle, now had the ultimate weapon against him. Headlines across the globe began labeling him a perjurer, a man who fabricates memories to fit a narrative of victimhood. The narrative shifted from Harry versus the press to Harry versus the truth. Legal experts and public commentators are now describing him as a dangerous revisionist, someone willing to rewrite his own history and the lives of those around him just to win a headline. The psychological toll of this defeat is immense, but the moral cost is even higher. Harry stood in a court of law, raised his hand, and swore on the Bible to tell the truth. Then, he was exposed for attempting to destroy the career and reputation of a young mother and professional journalist based on a lie. This level of perceived ruthlessness has caused a massive shift in sentiment, even in the United States, where his popularity was already on thin ice. The American public, often sympathetic to his plight, is now starting to distance itself from a man who seems to have a very loose relationship with reality. Yet, as the world reels from the news of his dishonesty, the financial and social implications are expanding into territory no one expected. The shame of being branded a liar in a 436-page legal document is a heavy burden, but it is not the only thing Harry has to worry about. Because this lie, this specific moment of betrayal, is starting to pull an international music legend down into the financial abyss along with him. The question is no longer just about Harry's future, it's about who else is going to pay the price for his failed crusade. The contrast could not be more jarring or more painful to witness. While Prince Harry was being metaphorically interrogated in a cold London courtroom, facing the most humiliating defeat of his professional life, Meghan Markle was 5,000 miles away. There were no frantic phone calls, caught by paparazzi, no signs of stress, and certainly no flight booked to the United Kingdom. Instead, reports placed her behind the high, fortified gates of their Montecito mansion, reportedly enjoying the California sunshine and the quiet luxury of a life Harry fought to provide for her. This is the moment the love story of the century began to show its fatal cracks. For years, the public was sold a narrative of two soulmates against the world, a modern-day fairy tale of a prince who gave up his kingdom for the woman he loved. But when the world actually pushed back, only one of them was left standing in the line of fire. We have to look at the cold, hard facts regarding Meghan's recent travel history to understand why her absence in London is so deafening. The Sussex camp has long used security concerns as a universal shield to explain why Meghan cannot step foot on British soil. Yet, this excuse has become increasingly transparent. We have seen her fly across oceans for red carpet galas, attend high-profile concerts, and join VIP parties where the security risks are arguably much higher. She is willing to travel for a photo opportunity, for a brand launch, or for a luxury vacation, but for the one day her husband needed her to hold his hand as his reputation was being dismantled, she stayed home. Behind the scenes, the whispers from Montecito are growing into a roar. Sources close to the couple's inner circle have begun to leak a much darker reality. One insider reportedly stated that Meghan is now in a state of total brand protection mode. The narrative being whispered in Hollywood circles is that she views Harry's legal failures as a contagion that she cannot afford to catch. The Duchess is reportedly being advised that her own professional comeback depends on her being seen as a powerhouse individual, not as one half of a losing legal battle. As one industry expert put it, she is distancing herself from the wreckage. She didn't sign up to be the wife of a man who is becoming a global laughingstock. This calculated move has sent the internet into a frenzy. The word divorce is no longer a fringe theory discussed in the corners of social media. It is now a trending topic that is dominating the news cycle. People are starting to realize that Meghan has already placed one foot out the door. She is weighing the risks, calculating the returns, and it appears that Prince Harry is no longer a winning investment. The image of the loyal wife standing by her man has been replaced by the image of a strategist cutting her losses. Think about the sheer weight of that realization for Harry. He chose to go to war with his own blood, his own father, and his own brother, all under the banner of protecting his wife. He traded 1,000 years of royal tradition for a life in a country where he is now being labelled a liar by the courts. And in his hour of greatest need, the woman he sacrificed everything for chose to stay in the sun rather than stand in the rain with him. Is this the behaviour of a partner? Or the behaviour of someone who has already moved on? You have to ask yourself, if the roles were reversed, would Harry have stayed behind? The answer seems obvious. But the coldness of this betrayal is only the beginning of the end. Because while Harry sits in the silence of his isolation, a financial tidal wave is heading toward the Sussex mailbox, a bill so large it threatens to bankrupt the very foundation of their lavish lifestyle. The financial guillotine has finally dropped, and the sound it made was the scratching of a pen on a very large cheque. In the British legal system, there is a brutal rule for those who lose. The loser pays for everything. Because Prince Harry's crusade against the Daily Mail has ended in such a spectacular failure, he is now staring down a bill that is nothing short of catastrophic. We are talking about a total cost approaching $10 million. Think about the sheer biting irony of this situation. Harry didn't just go to court to win money. He went on a self-described holy war to dismantle the Daily Mail, to bring a media empire to its knees and prove they were the villains of his life story. Instead, he has achieved the exact opposite. As we speak, the editors and executives at the Daily Mail are likely popping champagne, not just because they won, but because their greatest enemy is now legally obligated to fund their operations. Harry is effectively writing a $10 million check to the very people he claims to loathe. He set out to destroy them, and instead, he is making them richer. But the financial carnage doesn't stop with the Duke of Sussex. Harry wasn't alone when he started this fire. He convinced a circle of high-profile A-list allies to join his ranks. Legends like Sir Elton John stood shoulder to shoulder with him, lending their names and their reputations to this legal battle. They believed in Harry's vision. They believed he had the evidence to back up his claims. Now, as the dust settles on this 436-page defeat, these celebrities are finding themselves trapped in the wreckage. They are now forced to grit their teeth and help cover a massive mountain of debt for a cause that has been branded paranoid by a High Court judge. The Sussex crusade has turned into a financial black hole for everyone involved. Perhaps the most painful sting, however, isn't the money, it is the betrayal of history. Harry has often used the memory of his late mother, Princess Diana, as a shield for his actions, claiming he is simply finishing the battle she started. But history tells a very different story. While it is true that Diana had a complicated relationship with the press, she was also a master of the media game. In fact, during her most difficult years, she often viewed the Daily Mail as a strategic ally. She famously cooperated with their journalists to ensure her side of the story was told when the palace tried to silence her. By attempting to burn this institution to the ground, Harry isn't honouring his mother's legacy. He is systematically tearing apart the very tools she used to survive. It is a slap in the face to the memory of a woman who understood the power of the press far better than her son ever will. The public perception of this failure is shifting from pity to mockery. If Princess Diana were alive today, would she be proud of this reckless gamble? Or would she weep at the sight of her son throwing away his fortune and his dignity on a lost cause? The numbers tell a story of absolute desperation. The estimated net worth of Sussex Limited Liability Company has reportedly plummeted from $60 million to a mere $35 million in record time. Their wealth is evaporating at a staggering rate, and the lifestyle they've built in Montecito is becoming a gilded cage they can no longer afford. As the bank accounts drain and the Hollywood invitations dry up, a terrifying question is beginning to circulate. What happens when a man who has burned every bridge finally runs out of money? We are seeing the beginning of a financial checkmate. And the most shocking move is yet to come, as a broken, bankrupt prince contemplates the one thing he swore he would never do, crawling back to the royal family to beg for salvation. The adrenaline of the courtroom has worn off, replaced by a cold, hollow realization. As the sun set over London, Prince Harry found himself in a position that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Physically exhausted, emotionally drained, and facing a financial abyss, he did what any son might do in a moment of total crisis. He reached out to his father. According to sources close to the royal household, Harry made a direct plea to Buckingham Palace. He wasn't asking for a public reconciliation or a return to royal duties. He was simply asking for a place to sleep and a few minutes of King Charles III's time. He wanted a sanctuary behind the walls that once protected him, a chance to explain himself, and perhaps a small gesture of paternal mercy that would signal to the world that he wasn't completely cast out. But the response he received was a chilling testament to how much has changed. There was no warm welcome, no prodigal son moment, and certainly no guest suite prepared. Instead, Harry was met with a wall of administrative silence. The king, supported by a resolute and uncompromising Prince William, reportedly sent a message that was the royal equivalent of a slammed door. The answer was a definitive no. The king's schedule was suddenly too full. The royal residences were unavailable due to ongoing maintenance or staffing issues. In reality, these were the polite diplomatic masks for a much harsher truth. The king is finished being Harry's safety net. With William now acting as the primary architect of the family's long-term strategy, the decision has been made to protect the institution at all costs. They have realised that every time they extend an olive branch to Harry, it is eventually used as a weapon against them in a book, a documentary, or a court filing. For the first time in centuries, a prince of the blood, a man born within the walls of a palace, found himself wandering the streets of London like a commoner, forced to check into a luxury hotel under an assumed name. Imagine the scene. The Duke of Sussex, a man who once had an entire army of staff at his beck and call, sitting alone in a rented room, watching the news of his own humiliation on a hotel television. There were no cameras to document his bravery, no Netflix crew to capture his pain. There was only the silence of a man who has finally realised that he is truly on his own. This isn't just a family feud anymore, it is a total quarantine. The royal family has decided to isolate Harry completely, treating him not as a brother or a son, but as a high-level security risk to their reputation. They would rather let him sit in a lonely hotel room in the heart of London than give him a single photograph or a single quote that he could later sell to the highest bidder. The firm has moved on, and they have left Harry behind in the wreckage of his own making. But as Harry sits in that isolation, the world is beginning to notice another glaring absence. Where is the woman who claimed she would always be his shield? Where is the partner who promised to break the cycle of royal suffering? While Harry is being treated like a ghost in his own country, Meghan Markle's next move is already being choreographed behind the scenes. And if you thought the rejection from the palace was brutal, wait until you see the cold-blooded strategy she is preparing to execute as the Sussex brand enters its final terminal phase. The mask of privacy is about to be shattered one last time, but not in the way anyone expected. The ultimate irony of the Sussex saga has finally reached its peak, exposing a hypocrisy so profound it has left even their most loyal supporters speechless. While Prince Harry was in a London courtroom, sweating under the pressure of cross-examination and claiming that the media's intrusion had shattered his soul and destroyed his right to a private life, a very different scene was unfolding back in California. Just as the Duke was begging a judge to protect his sanctuary, news broke that Meghan Markle had officially signed off on a massive new Netflix reality project. This isn't a documentary about global issues or charity work. This is a lifestyle show that effectively invites the entire world into the most intimate corners of their Montecito home. While Harry is fighting to keep the cameras out of his past, Meghan is literally inviting them into her kitchen, her garden, and her private life to film a series designed for one purpose: profit. This is the central paradox that has finally destroyed their credibility. You cannot spend years screaming for privacy while simultaneously selling that same privacy to the highest bidder. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have turned their personal lives into a global commodity. From the explosive Oprah Winfrey interview to their multi-part Netflix docuseries and finally to Harry's tell-all memoir, they have systematically monetized every secret, every private conversation, and every family grievance. They have successfully cashed checks totaling over $135 million by peeling back the curtain on their lives. And yet, here is Harry using taxpayer-funded courtrooms to sue the press for doing exactly what he and Meghan have done for years, talking about their lives. This is the tabloid punchline that the world can no longer ignore. It is a level of cognitive dissonance that defies logic. To put it in perspective, imagine a person who intentionally takes a torch and sets fire to their own house. They stand on the sidewalk and watch it burn, filming the flames for a documentary and selling the footage for millions. Then, when the fire department arrives to put out the blaze, that same person turns around and sues the firefighters for getting their front lawn wet. That is the reality of the Sussex legal strategy. They have torched their own bridges, burned their own family ties, and broadcast the destruction for the world to see, only to cry foul when the media reports on the smoke. The tragedy of this situation is that Harry seems to believe his own narrative. He truly appears to think he can control the world's perception of him by force, even as his actions contradict every word he speaks. But the court of public opinion has delivered its own verdict. The brand of the Sussexes is no longer associated with royalty, service, or even activism. It has become a brand synonymous with a specific kind of modern hypocrisy, one where privacy is a weapon used against enemies but a product sold to friends. As the $10 million legal bill looms and the royal doors remain firmly shut, the Duke and Duchess are finding themselves in a world of their own making, isolated, financially drained, and increasingly irrelevant. The crusade is over, and all that is left is the wreckage of a reputation that may never be rebuilt. We've reached the end of this deep dive into the collapse of the Sussex Empire. If you found this analysis insightful and want to see more content that pulls back the curtain on the real power moves within the monarchy, make sure to hit that like button. It helps us keep the lights on here at the Royal Audit. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you're the first to know when we drop our next investigative breakdown. We want to hear from you in the comments. Is there any coming back for Harry and Meghan, or is this the final chapter of their public lives? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.